All right, it's Saturday. We're live with another COFOH Live Undead, and I still can't find my pants. I'm your host, Daniel Crosier, with COFOH Live and Undead, and we're here with musician, writer, Steven Archer. Holy shit. But first... something on my face.
Well, shit. I didn't know if we were going to be doing masks. So we would have been a little more prepared.
I know. I should have told you. It's like, come prepared. You know,
I've got so many fluids available that we could have been throwing around.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be the recipient of your fluids, but you know, it's your room. Sling what you want. Steven, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Good.
Fantastic. It's funny. I was thinking about that with your pants issue. I was thinking about that as I was getting ready for this. I was like, well, you know, I'll actually have to wear pants for this. So, you know, fly free.
Yeah. You know, some people have just gone up and, you know, shown their waist in the viewfinder too. And it's always interesting to interview genitalia.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's got so much to say. I mean, that one guy's a dick, though.
Yeah. That little teabagger. What the fuck?
Yeah, there you
go. Steven, thanks for coming on the show. You know, first off, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you come from, and, you know, how did you get into writing and music, and you're also a visual artist too?
Well, I mean, you know, I started once I was born. I mean, I just started art when I was a kid, and you know, as my mom always says, it was clearly the thing.
Yeah.
So I've got a degree in fine art from Corcoran in DC. And I have always had bands and stuff, like, because in the end, it's all the same thing for me, really. Mm-hmm. It's just different tools.
Right.
So, you know, I've got the degree for art, but everything else I've is just self-taught. I just decided it was time to learn how to do it. And I think it helps being very poor for the majority of your life. And so, you know, it's my entire life has always been about just figuring a way to make it work.
Yeah.
So it's really a lot of what I have had to learn to do, just even going into like doing video stuff or you know, that sort of thing. It's always just been, well, you know, I might as well just push it as far as I can do it. I mean, we live in the future. We have access to all these tools. Like the first round of videos that I think we're going to show on later, I shot it on my iPhone, you know, or my iPad, you know. Yeah. So, you know, it's just taking advantage of all the things that we have access to. It just comes down to putting the time in to learn how to do it and then doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you pick up a lot of, you know, things as you went along, you know, different tools and different instruments and figuring out how to interpret them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I think whenever you have one discipline basically down, it makes it a lot easier to pick up other stuff because you're able to, you already have the ability to self-critique and you're usually able to, at least for me, able to articulate what it is you're shooting for. Right. And so when we start Ego Likeness, these 22 years ago, you know, we started it with garbage gear, but you know, I went at it from this point of view. It's like, I don't know what we're doing with any of this program, like programming, production, any of it. So we're going to keep it as simple as possible. We're going to write simple songs, real basic arrangements, and just try and make things that function, that work, that are engaging.
Okay. Nice.
You know, and so like our first demos, which crazily enough 2 years ago got released by our record label. This thing we made on our 4-track in the living room. You know, I remember walking back with a brick of tapes to make it. You know, has been released by, you know, one of the better record labels for the genre all over the world. So that's crazy. But
that's
you know, it's this dirty, noisy trip hop sort of industrial stuff. It's very atmospheric, and a lot of those key elements still go, you know, 60 records later of my own stuff, still hold through. I'm far less interested in notes than I am in sound and place and atmosphere. And you know, I think you can take a really simple melody and transform it into a whole world with just the right balance of different sounds and create that sense of place for the listener. I'm really big on personal soundtracks.
Yeah. So it almost sounds like you're interested in creating a score for, you know, feeling.
Yeah, I actually just released through Stoneburner. I just released a CD called Untitled or Non-Existent Film Scores.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah. So I actually did. I've scored, not scored. I've had music used for some films, but I did score a video for NASA.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if you just saw recently they landed a little craft on an asteroid and mined it to bring back. So when they announced that to the world, they had me write the music for the video that announced it to the world. So this little thing that I wrote on my couch like 15 years ago, and then they bought it.
Nice.
Has been heard by millions of people. Actually went on the spacecraft on a little flash drive, you know. So that's one of the weirdest things ever. You know?
But man, that's so cool, because now you're an interstellar musician.
You know, I guess that's actually true. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's pretty exciting to have something assigned, you know, to you know, human discovery and you know, potentially the betterment of humanity and science.
Well, it's cool because I wrote that song because growing up, you know, in the 80s and watching the original Cosmos with my mother.
Carl Sagan.
Yeah, exactly. The music was such a huge part of it, and it was such a huge influence in general on me. And so I actually wrote this piece as a little tribute-y kind of, just trying to get that feel down.
Yeah.
And then and a couple of years later, I reworked it and put part of it, like did a cover of Vangelis song, and then did this, just threw a bunch of like space videos behind it. So when I went to NASA to talk to them about it, I was like, well, I've got this.
Yeah.
And they're like, there you go. Can you add this one section where it's, you know, a little bit darker? You want darker? Sure. And then it's cool. The guy who did the voiceover for it is this dude, Jason Miller, who I'm from DC originally, and I knew him as part of the DC scene. Other people may be familiar with him as the singer for a band called Godhead.
Godhead. Right.
And no, he went on after Godhead. He's doing country, which is very cool.
Wow.
But he also does voiceover work for like animations. Like he'll do the translation for American audiences. So it's kind of cool. Like we never really worked together. All these other, you know, after all these years, and then we just kind of did this one thing, and we weren't even in the same place when it happened. But,
that's man, that's so cool. Yeah, I love the idea that, you know, you're you know, making music to, you know, kind of you know, transport you, you know, be emotional, as well as, you know, having that anchor to time and place, like you know, what you were saying with Carl Sagan's Cosmos. Have you been watching any of the new Cosmos?
I haven't had a chance to yet. This is actually the first. Like normally we're on tour with one or two of the bands like 4 or 5 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Like, and then when we're not on tour, I'm busy doing all the not on tour stuff. So I've missed. This is the first year that we haven't been on tour. Like this, Donna's and my anniversary is on the 29th in like 4 days, and it's the first time in probably 15 years that we've actually just been home. for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, normally we're on stage. We're both kind of like, oh, hey. So.
Oh, that's cool. So since you've been at home, I assume you're working on new material.
Oh yeah.
You just you do have quite a few different projects. Stoneburner. What are some of the other ones?
Well, okay, so there's Ego Likeness, which has been around forever, and that's kind of the thing that I'm probably most known for. With my wife Donna as our vocalist, and she's
cool.
She's fantastic. It's cool because from a producer guy standpoint, working with somebody who is that good a singer. She went to Peabody for opera, and also a writer. So we've got content, and because she's got the whole horror thing going on, it's great because we can actually really play back and forth with the atmosphere and the lyrics and stuff like that. I've had another ongoing project for years called Hopeful Machines that's really just a clearinghouse of stuff. Like I've probably got 50 records of that stuff, and it's it's one of those places where I like it, and that's all that matters. And if other people like it, like it's up on Bandcamp now, and anybody can download it for free. I've got Stoneburner, which is kind of my main personal project. That it started out kind of as a tribal industrial band, and it started out as an almost as an art project. The first 5 records were based on this idea of what would disco sound like on Dune.
Oh,
and
nice.
So I spent Songs in the Key of Arrakis was one of the first records, and so I did like 5 records with that, and I felt like I had pushed it about as far as I could go with the idea, and it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot doing it. But I was getting ready to do the last one. I was like, I could do that again, and people would love it, and I wouldn't give a shit. So I'm just going to write this. It's my project. I can change it. I'm just going to write the industrial record that I've been promising myself I would write for basically my whole life. And so I really focused on that. And so since that, the last record, and I've done a bunch of EPs and stuff since then. It's been like having a whole new tool, because normally with Ego, I play guitar live and do the production, but actually being a fret person and singing, it's been great. It's been nice feeling like I'm able to articulate these ideas. And that was part of the idea with doing that record and the subsequent ones, was actually holding myself accountable for the lyrics and not just painting pictures with words, but actually saying, these are things I think are important. This is why. Yeah, and so that's been a very cool experience. Nice. I have a couple other projects. One called Ocellus, which is really weird experimental metal. I just dropped that a record called False Lashes for False Eyes, and that's been sitting around for like 3 years, and it's been finished, and I just haven't done anything with it. So I'm glad that's finally out. I've got a synthwave thing that I do called Queen Neon. That's another one of those, just kind of, let's just see what happens. I think that's it. I'm in other people's bands also occasionally.
That's fantastic. It seems like you've got no shortage of creative outlets, at least musically.
Well, I'm very lucky in that after all of these years of doing what I do, I have finally built up an audience that we can survive just more or less just selling paintings. That's the main source of income. The Bandcamp's wonderful, though. I mean, Ego is on an actual proper label, but everything else isn't. So anything that comes in just goes right to us, and which also I think is part of the incentive for. I mean, I've done like 18 videos in the last year, so part of the incentive is coming up with an easily packaged way to sell these ideas to people quickly. So and it works. I mean, it's a decent chunk of change every month, and so just. So between those two things, it's been really good. And so I'm lucky. Yeah. I mean, I get up in the morning and I go into whichever studio makes the most sense, and I do the thing, and, then switch.
Nice.
So it's been nice not having to worry about tour because of that. Like, since whenever all this started, I've put out like an EP, mostly full-length record, 3 EPs of covers. Scores EP, an ambient record. And then I've just been able to go through and actually uploading like all of the projects over the years. Like there's another one, the Trinity project, which I've been putting up, which was something we did like 20 years ago. And so it's finally getting more out there again. Plus, I'm working on a book about art. Currently it's called You Suck. You suck another hard lessons for artists. I have a real hard time imagining the publisher will go for that. But it's basically all of the stuff that nobody ever says to you, including the fact that you suck. You know, and that's fine because we all suck at some point. But it all came out of me watching these poor kids. You know, I remember being excited about having made this thing, you know, and they post it on these online forums and they just get destroyed.
Oh yeah, like Instagram or something, right?
Yeah. So I actually wrote up a whole thing. It's like, dear young artists, you suck, and that's okay. You may be great for 16, but there's a reason that you have sketchbooks and you show them to your friends. But if you post them online, it's going to be detrimental to you because you're going to have people who are going to say, and they'll be positive, they'll encourage you, but there are people who are going to just kind of go, yeah, this is garbage. You know, and you're 16. Your emotions aren't developed yet. You know, just, you know, don't stick yourself right in the middle of traffic immediately.
Yeah, that outer thick skin. You know, that's years off. You know,
right. I posted that to a couple of the forums, and they wouldn't let it through because they didn't read the whole thing, which I think is kind of ironic and funny. But that's pretty exciting, putting something like that together, especially with from that perspective. You know, you mentioned you went to art school. Yeah, I went to art school too. Oh, no. Where'd you go?
Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design here in Denver. So I graduated with a degree in sculpting.
Oh, cool.
And, you know, like you know, going through those critique sessions. Holy crap, that stuff was grilling. It was like going through a meat grinder, but you're so much better an artist, but also I think a person too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you learn that the things you make aren't who you are. The fact that you make them, that can be who you are, and that's cool. But like, I always tell people, like, if I'm giving you a critique and you don't walk away crying, I haven't done my job. Because that means that my job is essentially to go and look at your work and go, okay, here are all the places where you think you were getting away with something by not actually knowing what you were doing, and here's how to fix that. Yeah. And you know, with not proper artists, but more mature artists, it's fine, you know, and they'll get that. One of the most amazing, we owned an art gallery for a while, and I was walking through the gallery with a local art teacher, and we were just kind of casually critiquing the work, and we came up to a piece that was mine. He knew it was mine, and he looks at it and he goes, "This is what I would call a magnificent failure." And I was like, "Really? Why?" He goes, "Because you worked," and it was this painting that was like 5 feet wide by like 8 feet high. And he was like, "Because you worked so hard to make it magnificent that you didn't make it good." And I stopped, and it was being slapped in the face, not in a bad way, but in a way of just like, you're absolutely right. I knew there was something wrong with it, but I couldn't figure out what it was. And that is exactly what the problem was.
It's kind of like swinging for the fences, but missing those steps in between.
Right, exactly. Like I know one of the ways I have explained sort of things to people is like, you know the words, but you don't know the song. Like, or you know the song, but you don't know how to perform the song. And there's a difference between, like, you know, I was explaining to a guy we were on tour with, I was like, you're doing all the moves, but I can see you thinking about what the next move you're going to do is.
Yeah. It's not.
The audience can too, even though they don't know it. Like, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty, that's a good thing to kind of pick up and that sort of thing too. I mean, it's tough to convey to people. You know, one of the methods that I learned was, you know, whatever the situation is, whatever, you know, piece that, or, you know, work that you're talking about, it's like, you know, go ahead and, you know, especially if it's somebody that you don't know, I would always like say, you know, something nice about it, and then follow it up. It's like, this is great here, and this is why, but this is where I think, you know, you should, you know, address this issue to improve. And here's why.
Right. It's always, that's the part that you like, that people always screw up. Like, I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to tell you something is wrong unless I can give you a reason and how you would fix it.
You need to articulate. If you can't articulate, it's an empty gesture, even if it's a compliment, I think.
Right. Well, it removes your credibility completely.
Right.
It's like, well, why should I listen to you? You don't have a better idea.
Right. Yeah. Whenever I'd have a gallery and somebody would come up, oh, that's really great, or it's interesting. That's usually like an empty calorie statement. And it's just like, okay, why is it interesting? Right. It's like, then they fall dead flat, and it's just like, all right, I'm gonna go back to the bar and go get a coffee or something.
Well, I mean, it depends on the person too. Like, I mean, the non-art people, that might be the best that they like. I mean,
sure,
got a good beat and I can dance to it is a perfectly valid reason to like a song or a painting or whatever, But yes, once I kind of like, while I was in school, at one point I just decided, like, if I'm going to do this, I'm a pretty opinionated person to begin with, and I was like, if I'm going to have an opinion about something, I need to be able to articulate it. And so I spent like intentionally for about 3 or 4 years, anytime I had a strong reaction, good, bad, indifferent, I would sit there and try and quantify it just to myself and be able to say, okay, this is why I don't like this.
Right. That's brilliant. Yeah, I think it's a good exercise to sit there and have to participate with either a music or film or an art piece, and then have to figure out, like, why do I appreciate this? Why do I not appreciate it? And then even if you have to deconstruct and work backwards to get to some kind of starting point, I think that's absolutely brilliant, and I think it makes it a more full-figured, kind of feeling or experience too.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and and also it just goes a long way towards. Personally, I think it goes a long way towards being a better adult and a better person because like, I mean, certainly even in the current political climate or just any sort of thing, like being able to go, okay, having had thought through why you feel a certain way about something, and I don't know, it's an interesting thing. Like, I just think it's. I run into way too many people who have these responses to stuff, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the actual thing. Like, I don't like it because it reminds me of some other thing that, or I'm, whatever. It helps you be, I guess, present. It helps you be. There's a very
moment.
Zen, in the moment, sort of like, no, I'm not thinking about these things. I'm looking at this right in front of me, or listening to this thing.
Yeah.
Why does it work? And it's great. Like, I can watch a band. We played a show in Detroit one time. There was this dude. It was one guy named Sean, and he came out on stage with just these manufactured like skin drums, and we watched 30 seconds of the show. Don and I watched 30 seconds of the show, and we were like, we're bringing him on our next tour.
Awesome.
Because you can you just, like, I can watch most bands on stage and know not whether they're technically good, but whether they're going to be engaging. And whether they have all of their shit together. Right. And so, like, seeing something like Sean, or just even any other piece of work where you can you walk through a gallery and you see somebody's sculpture and you see the range of what they're doing. It's like, oh, that's not just a trick.
Yeah.
Like, this guy knows one trick and he's figured out a bunch of ways to use it, and that's cool. But show me what you got.
Right. With that trick, would you identify something like that as a gimmick, perhaps? Or is it just more of a?
It can. Well, okay. So here's one of the places where people decide they don't like me. I will often say that I think H.R. Geiger's a hack. Okay. And the reason I say that is because he's technically really good at what he does. But if you go and you look back at his earlier stuff, where he's exploring a bunch of different ideas, like some of his student stuff with the leg that's just kind of wandering around by itself, and then or the trains, like his big train, But a lot of it, it's like he found a trick that worked really well, and it made him a lot of money, and it made him famous, and that's awesome, and that's great. But after he finds that trick, I don't feel like he pushes it. like he just settled into this one style and this one, you know, like the antithesis I always use is Picasso, because like, you know, he started at a really young age. He did his blue period, which was fantastic, and then he, you know, went off and did this whole other thing intentionally because he was trying to learn this stuff, and so he could intentionally move from style to style to style. He wasn't doing this one radical painting style that didn't look like anything because he couldn't paint. He was doing it to explore a specific idea.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, and I understand. I think when an artist, you know, and this is me personally, I think when an artist, you know, comes to a point where they're comfortable, and yeah, they're, you know, for me, when I get into a comfortable setting, I don't like it. I'm like, okay, I need to change something. I need to feel uncomfortable. I need to be agitated, or I need to be in a different state of mind. But comfort is not what I'm working towards.
Exactly. I mean, well, like Stoneburner is by and large, you know, this industrial project, and on the last record, I was like, okay, well, that's cool, but I'm going to do a song that's just me and piano, and because it's my fucking project and I can do that, and I've never done it before, so I'm going to see if I can make it.
Nice.
So, you know, I do these things called put up or shut up to myself, where it's just like, you know, a few years back, I was like, all right, painter guy, let's see it like repaint these Rembrandts. I was like, okay. So I spent a couple of weeks and copied a couple of Rembrandts, and I think they're pretty solid. They aren't brush stroke for brush stroke, and I certainly didn't lay the paint down the same way he did, but they look good. Or another project I gave myself a while back was I got really into the idea of optical distortions. And so I was painting, I did a bunch of paintings where I was like shooting photos into the sun, or with like intentionally blurring them, going with photos. And then I was doing paintings of those blurs, or of places where optically your eyes have been overdriven, things like that.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's neat. It's a lot of fun to do. And it's interesting because music, sonically, I find that I do similar stuff. Like I get with Ocellus in particular, part of the game with that was I'm going to take these really unpleasant noises and see if I can use them to write music with. And so, like, yes, that is a sound of fingernails on a chalkboard as a keyboard. I've just pitched it down, but there's still enough of that discordantness to it that it gets into you without being unlistenable.
Nice.
So like I love those or like I did a song where there was this big like explosion of sound, and then I put that little tinnitus hum behind it at the afterwards, after everything drops out. Just to create that additional illusion of volume.
Right. Well, you put something there to, you know, I think it also helps to, like, you know, there's that unsettlingness to it as well, which is which I find nice. It adds to, like, you know, as we were talking about, like mood and tone and being in the presence of something, you know, and that's also a tool that's worked really well in scores for like horror film soundtracks. You know, just having even if you have just the ambience of the room, that little static of no noise, you know,
exactly,
cutting out the sound completely from the film. You know, it's there's that unnervedness, and it sets up.
If you remove anything, like humans function by comparing everything, like all the data coming in. So if you get rid of that data, you don't have anything to work with. And that can be a little scary, but if you provide just a little bit of data that maybe you can't easily understand, then it gets really interesting. That's the part where people start filling everything in. And that's what that's one of the things I love. And that's something I use in my visual artwork all the time is I do a lot of let's be honest. I do a lot of women covered in blood and in very, I'm not going to say violent situations, but very visceral situations. And part of and I've never once been called a misogynist, which I think is very cool, because that means people are actually getting what I'm doing. It's not about violence against women. Often it is about women fighting back, but it's also just about, like, the way I explain it is like, if you look at a woman under a whole bunch of lights surrounded by dudes in masks covered in blood on a table, that can be one really horrible thing, or it can be somebody giving birth. And I like putting figures in these situations where you're coming at it completely neutral. You have no idea what it is, and you have to determine for yourself what is being represented and just come up with something, that I find those ideas, the ideas that other people create about my work, far more interesting than my own, like, because sometimes they'll put all kinds of stuff that would never even occur to me that's totally valid.
Yeah. Man, that's I think you're working with some fantastic and wonderful ideas, and stuff that's complex and challenging. So that's great.
Yes, I am.
Yes, you got damn right. Hey,
you'd be amazed by how many interviews I've gotten over the years by going, "Hey, you should come talk to me. I'm fantastically interesting," and
just you fishing out that line.
Yeah, actually, but it's worked, and it's like, there's a great quote from some film where it's like, we're all born with our own little horns, and if we don't toot them, who else will?
That's true. So, you're your own best press writer until you can hire somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, why don't we share with everybody that's watching your music video from Stormburner, or I'm sorry, Stoneburner. Yeah, the
Angel of Abscess. I was saying earlier that this is I spent like 4 days building this whole set. Like there's a massive wall of X-rays that a fan sent that I built. It was like 12 feet by 12 feet, and then I had to program all the lighting behind that. Wow. And then, like, the majority of it also, all the dead stuff is stuff we had around the house. And true, our house is like we live in the middle of nowhere, so I just collect corpses and let them process. We had a corpse farm right by our door for a while, their yard.
Oh, geez.
Well, deer get hit.
Yeah, they do. Oh, fantastic. So this is Stoneburner, the Angel of Abscess. Oh man, that was fantastic. I love that.
Thanks.
That looks like so much fun.
It's also just one of those things that like I'm the only person to do it, or I'm the only person working on it, so I always have to figure everything out, and so there's an awful lot of me getting all up in in costume and then running up a ladder to fix a lighting thing or whatever. Right. But talk like I think I was saying earlier, that was all shot on my iPad. Now I've got a much nicer camera finally, but
Yeah, for an iPad, I mean, it looks amazing. You're able to see that like feature films are being done on iPhones and iPads. Mm-hmm. There's a movie I remember, like it's like probably about 6 years ago, called Tangerine. Mm-hmm. It was all shot on at the time I think the iPhone 5.
Right.
Gorgeous.
Do you know the magazine Cinefex?
Oh yeah, I know that magazine.
I remember I grew up and reading that at the store, and they made an iPad app for it. So I went and I got all of the early issues of it, and I was like, we live in the future.
Yep.
I bet I can do a bunch of this stuff, and so like, one of the most recent videos I built a whole green screen rig and
nice.
Did all of that, miniatures and everything.
That's
cool. Being able to do all that at home.
Oh man, that's really cool that you're able to be so self-sufficient and knock that stuff out. Now you also have and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a new book coming out, right?
I do. It's a few years ago, for some reason, every time I read a book, it mentioned Mask of the Red Death, and I was like, I can't get away from it. So I started researching it, looking into it, and I got really interested in the decadence of the story, and so I just started putting together an illustrated version of it. Also done all on my iPad, in fact, which is just as an interesting comparing and contrast. I did a deck of tarot cards the year before, 70 something cards. Took me 2 months to do all the artwork for it. This book has 68 pages, and I did it in 2 weeks on the iPad. So that was really it was a neat new tool. But anyway, so living in that world for a couple of weeks was really interesting. And then for various reasons, it just sat around. And as I've been telling people, I was like, been sitting around till the time was right. And once I realized the time was right, all I had to do was send a envelope with a little something extra to China. Mm-hmm. And that started my whole advertising campaign. I'm sorry for all the loss that it may have caused, but it'll look great for my book.
Cool.
You can laugh or cry at these things.
Yeah.
But we realized how timely it was, and so my publisher and we were able to get it out, and it's digital drops in December, and January physicals will be in January. Right. But it's cool. I got blurbs from the head of the Poe Museum, which was very cool, and Josh Mellerman, who did Bird Box, Neil Gaiman, and a bunch of other very cool.
Oh, cool that's
things. Awesome. All seem to think it's nice. So,
yeah, everybody that's watching, if you notice the ticker going down at the bottom, it's there for a reason. You can go pre-order, the Mask of the Red Death book by Stephen at rawdogscreaming.com, and there's the link there, and then it's there for pre-order, and then go to Wolfcore Records at wolfcorerecords.bandcamp.com for almost all of your music library, except
for Ego,
Except for Ego,
that's on their label. But and also, if anybody out there is interested in doing review copies for Mask, send me an email, egolikeness@gmail.com, and I'm doing everything I can to just try and get the thing out there, because I think it's really, really cool. And it's I feel like it's a very modern and interesting take. The Red Death is a female, so that was kind of a fun thing to play with. Although there was my mantra throughout because I wanted her to very much be a force of nature, and So my mantra during the entire time of working, I was like, we do not sexualize the Red Death. So she's not about, I didn't want to present her as anything that is other than this fearful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I like to think I did a pretty good job with it, which was cool.
Nice. It's like some kind of force of nature type thing.
Very, very much so. She is not fucking around. She is not there to be beautiful and whimsically, whatever the manic pixie dream girl version of her would be. She is very much about, no, I'm killing your entire species. That's just how it's going to go.
The deadliest of the species, female.
There you go.
Yeah. For those of us out there that aren't familiar with the Mask of the Red Death, can you give us a little bit of background?
Sure. Well, we're living it. Essentially, a plague covers the land, and Prince Prospero takes a bunch of his followers, and they all hole up in his castle, and then they just party for months at a time, and completely ignore the outside world. And I've always been kind of fascinated by island culture, and not specifically island, but the idea of when you remove a group of people from accountability, what they're allow themselves to do. And as the book progresses, the book talks a little non-specifically about what happens. The artwork gets fairly specific about like this is what's going on. And then Prospero has a masquerade, and at midnight, naturally, it's Poe, someone arrives as the Red Death and just kind of systematically just kills everybody there, including Prince Prospero, and then just leave to go on and continue her plague. One of the things I really enjoyed with her character in particular was that she is kind of perpetual. She's just covered in these wounds, and her dress trails behind her as this almost living biological nightmare that just kind of follows her throughout the story.
Wow. Yeah. That, it certainly does, echo, what we're living in today. I think that's spot on. So it's really time appropriate.
Yeah. That worked out really well. For me.
Yeah.
But yeah. And, I think that it's a very interesting thing to see something in print that has my name next to Edgar Allan Poe's.
Yeah.
That's kind of a weird experience, but
it's exciting.
Yeah, it's incredibly exciting. It's just one of those. I tend to operate by instinct, and my instinct with doing that project was, this could be a very, very cool thing, and it just happened to work out, so
nice. Well, that's man. Yeah, that seems incredibly exciting. And also the fact that you've gotten responses from guys like Neil Gaiman.
We've worked with him before. Actually, it was very exciting because we wrote a song for him for a compilation that he was kind of curating, and he said some really nice stuff about it. And then we were at a convention that he was at, and we kind of got pulled in by his people and went and spent however long with them, and it was very cool because it was kind of before, I guess this was probably 10 or 12 years ago, and it was before there was a lot of internet streaming video and things like that. And so it was nice sitting down and talking to him and going, wow, you're exactly the kind of person I want you to be, and then we ran into him a couple of years later, and he was like, oh, you guys just did this thing, right? And I was like, wow, you're aware of what we do. That's nuts.
Yeah.
So, it was one of those, you're not supposed to meet your idols and your heroes and things like that, but this was one of those.
On that. Yeah.
Like, hey, you're actually a good person. That's cool.
Yeah, it's always a pleasant surprise when you meet somebody that you like or you idolize, and they're actually who they portray themselves to be, or they come off as really nice. Sometimes that's not always what they portray themselves to be.
a bunch of years back, I got really into this book called Blind Sight by Peter Watts, which, if you haven't read it, is fantastic. It's one of the best pieces of science fiction to come out in years. Nice. And I got so into it that I was kind of stalking him online and writing him and asking him questions. And then I actually ended up booking a show in Toronto specifically so I could meet the dude. And I was nice because within a couple of minutes, we were both like totally on the same page with how awful people are and how cool these ideas are. And we just nerded the hell out. And so it's really nice when you get to have that. And he actually is on the Technology Implies Belligerence, which is the title came from that book. And he's actually on that, doing some spoken word stuff as well. So it's always really cool when you can talk to those people.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I've had those experiences where you go and meet somebody and they're just maybe you just catch them at the wrong moment or they're having a bad day. And I like to give them the benefit of that doubt, but it's just like, wow, that was kind of a daunting experience. And I
get it. I've been on the other side. You roll into a show. You've been on the road for 6 hours. You're smelly. Right. You just get through sound check. But there's also, I don't know. Whenever we go on tour or getting ready to do stuff like that, I always try and put it out there online. I'm like, look, this is what we do. Mm-hmm. So if this is the case, I'm really not a dick. I'm just tired or hungry or angry or whatever it is. But there are people who they're really good at what they do, but they don't do people well. I don't do people well, but I've learned over the years a little bit to fake it. So
hey, you're getting by.
I'm much better now than I was. When you're on the spectrum, you get very much like, I don't do small talk, so I can have a conversation about it. Like, tell me what you love. If you love one-sided pink widgets, we can talk about one-sided pink widgets. That's cool. Nice. But I'm never gonna be able to be interested in your computer job. I need something to work with.
Right. Right. Most definitely. You can't just talk about the weather all the time.
Right. Yeah. I've been meaning to say I really like your background. I think that's cool. It took me a while to kind of parse what it was, but that's cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's all cast latex. It's from it's our logo for COFOH or for Colorado Festival of Horror. So it's all in the Colorado flag insignia.
Oh, right on. That's cool.
Just a bunch of them. So I still got obviously a few more castings to fill up, and then I'm constantly just building around it and adding more.
So would you do like a alginate mix, and then are you actually casting them, or are you just kind of painting the latex down and doing the stamp or something?
Yeah, so just a plaster mold. Okay. Just sculpted a prop skull and added the flag piece. Did a mold, pulled that, and then just been casting tons of those. So I've been doing like some 3D posters for Mile High Horror Film Fest. I'll cast them out of latex so that everything feels like that haunted house, or Halloween costume shop where you got the latex mask and you can smell that air.
Oh yeah.
With these I just don't paint them because they look like flesh.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that nice? Yeah, I always appreciate that with the latex. You can always just kind of like, and it can be anybody's. You just add some other tints to it, and you can ramp it up.
Yeah, a buddy of mine. In fact, he's doing a pinball tournament of death, and we would put together these haunted corridors. So each room was ducked out to the theme of a horror-based or a horror-themed pinball machine. Mm-hmm. We'd have like an Elvira room, and we'd have Invaders from Mars room and stuff. And then all the connecting hallways and corridors were wrapped in big, long skins of latex.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just roll out in like 4x8 sheets and stuff, and then you peel them up. Throw down a little soap as a separator, but it still fills up thin and tarnished, and it looks like a big sheet of skin. It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's amazing, the simple effects that you can, that can be so visceral and
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of that. Like, for as much as I would love to get into the digital 3D stuff, it's like I'm a visual guy, and like I'm sitting here working on a head for a project, and like this I can just do, whereas I have to think too much when I'm trying to do the digital stuff. So for me, it's always like if it's a tangible physical thing, then it's much easier for me to just knock it out. Whereas I have to learn a whole new skill set to do that. So
there's that learning curve, and you got to stick to it, but it'll come.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Where are you with that head? Let's
I honestly, I literally just started it. This is
just the
back part, and then I've got magnets inside it so that I'll be able to change faces for it.
Oh, that's smart. That's pretty clever. That's cool. Yeah. What is it like working with you work with your wife in the band, but she's also a writer as well.
She is a writer as well. Yeah, and actually, I was saying earlier, these were a couple of books that just came out. That might be too bright, but a couple of books that just came out. Choking Back the Devil is a book of poetry that she just put out last year that was nominated for a Stoker. And then we did this book, Witches, a couple of years ago, and I did all the artwork for it. And then so it's a process thing we do where I'll do a bunch of artwork and then give her characters or ideas and say, okay, here you go. And then she writes the stuff kind of around it.
Wow.
So that's kind of a fun. What we learned over the years, we don't work well together, but we work fine when we're separated. So like if we just have like one thing communicating back and forth, because each of us are good at what the other person is better at, that you end up in a situation where somebody's standing behind the other going, well, but So if we don't, and we don't put ourselves in that situation, just trust the other person to do the thing. Like when we're doing ego stuff, like I don't read her lyrics. I don't do anything. I don't hear them until I'm recording her vocals. And when that happens, my only input is here are ways rhythmically, this might be a little bit better, change it. And then she goes away and I do all the production stuff. And we're not in the same place until we're listening to kind of the final mixes. And because otherwise we're just two up each other's asses. We live together and then, you're on tour in the van together and all this other stuff.
Yeah, that can be tough and also kind of impose on the personal, co-mingling and co-living.
Well, we've living in the van, you learn how to be alone with other people, and that's always a really good skill to develop.
Yeah, I can only imagine that sounds like a pretty unique experience.
It's really nice because we've got Ego and we'll go on tour with that, and that's us and two other dudes in the back. But we'll do other tours with like Stoneburner or some other project, and it's just the two of us, and that's actually really cool because we actually kind of get to be married. One of the advantages of booking your own tours, like with Ego, we've got a booking agent, but with Stoneburner, I'll just book tours, and we'll have like 2 or 3 shows, and then a few days off, and during those days, like we'll build in days off in cool places. So like we went to the Very Large Array or like Meteor Crater, Arizona, and you just kind of work all of that stuff into it, and it actually kind of allows us to be married and go and do fun things. Because when we're home, we're both working all the time, doing her writing and me doing all this other stuff, and when we're on tour, we got people. Nice. So just being able to go out with just the two of us, and really traveling is a lot of the payoff for doing all of this stuff. So
that sounds exciting. The one final question before we start wrapping up. When it comes to horror and everything, what are your biggest influences? I know we talked about Poe, obviously.
Actually, Clive Barker is a huge influence. I like Hellraiser stuff, but his visual sensibility. Right. His actual artwork.
He's a fantastic.
His pen and ink work is just fantastic. Also, stuff like The Great and Secret Show. He's very good. I love the idea of how he implies a lot of really large ideas. So I like the idea, because we're just these little bags of water and salt, running around saying, "Oh, we understand the universe." And I like it when authors explore trying to talk about things. It's like you can't understand this. You're never going to understand that. You just kind of need to accept that this weird shit's happening, and it's got its own reasons for it, and you're not going to get it. So Lovecraft, obviously.
Yeah.
A lot of the cosmic horror stuff. Oh, actually, one of the cool things about Mask is that I read, one of the stories I read was this book called story called Technicolor, and I actually was able to get in touch with the author, and he wrote the foreword for.
Cool.
John Langan wrote the foreword for it, and if you can track the story down, it's a really, really cool take on Technicolor. And he actually gets into a bunch of really cool, just technical stuff in the foreword about the book itself and an examination of it. So that's another, like Wide Carnivorous Sky is the name of the book that's in. That to me, that's just kind of like, that's I'm going to buy that just because of the name.
Yeah.
You know?
So that sounds like a kick-ass band name.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, that's the kind of horror I like. I get frustrated when I go to like the horror conventions, and there's like the one side where they're into this kind of thing, and then you have the other side who are I like things that get killing people and knives, right. And that's always very frustrating because it's like you're missing this really beautiful other aspect of horror that just because that's gross, it's like I'm all for the viscera and but there has to be a reason for it. Like I don't do horror porn.
Right.
Or rather, I scored a horror porn film with Ocellus, but it's about a guy who's a Nazi killer. So it's like torture porn, Nazi killer, cool. That I will totally do.
Yeah. Kind of like Dexter, but with better cause and effect.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. I
love that stuff as long as there's a reason for it, even if that reason happens to be specific to the person doing it. And any sort of body horror, like the horror, like Cronenberg's his son's stuff is really cool.
The Fly, Shivers, Rabid. Oh man. What was it? I think Elise and I just watched another one. Oh, The Brood.
Yeah.
Oof, man.
Yep.
Oh, those are so much fun. Stephen, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been just awesome to be able to chat with you. I have you on another time and your wife too. That'd be.
I'm not doing anything, so I'm just here. So anytime you want.
Right. Oh, that's cool. So, and for everybody that's out there, make sure you go out and go online, pre-order, The Mask of the Red Death through rawdogscreaming.com, and then visit Wolfcore Records at wolfcore-records.bandcamp.com. And you just put out so much amazing work. You have such an exciting body of art that you're sharing with the world. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm always amazed. Like I'll sit down at my easel that my mom bought me when I was 20. I'm like, it worked. So yeah, I'm forever tickled that anybody gives a shit. So thank you so much for having me and letting me just kind of spam your show. So yeah, this is awesome, and so hopefully, we can do it again. I'd love to.
Oh, most definitely. Go ahead and stick around after we end this broadcast. But I just wanted to give a shout out to our sponsor, Sumner Twins Talent, and then my producers, Stefan Santa Cruz and Amanda Armstrong. Again, thanks again, Stephen, for coming on, and to everybody out there that's watching. Make sure to go to this man's websites and get yourself some rad art, and for everybody out there too, be good, be kind, take care.